2026 has seen so many great games so far. Surely nothing could go wrong. Okay, but it can't get worse. That's gotta be the last one. You know what? I'm sure the industry has learned its lesson by now. About handling budget responsibly, about listening to player feedback, about not chasing trends in order to achieve short-term gains. Investing in its talent so it can continue to create great video games. Things can only go up from here. Oh, for God's sake, reset the counter. Well, that's certainly one way to start off the week. Epic Games, the developers behind Fortnite, have just announced that they are laying off 1,000 employees. It's not the first time that this has happened to Epic Games, but it is the most recent round of layoffs that we have seen so far, which has become concerningly more common in recent times. So today I want to talk about the recent rounds of layoffs from Epic Games in an industry that keeps bleeding talent. Now, while most companies out there would say that this is to readjust their strategy, or this is part of a restructuring effort, Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, stated the reason quite plainly, noting that Fortnite has been on a decline since 2025. Today, we're laying off over 1,000 Epic employees. The downturn in Fortnite engagement that started in 2025 means we're spending significantly more than we're making, and we have to make major cuts to keep the company funded. This layoff, together with over $500 million of identified cost savings in contracting, marketing, and closing some open roles, puts us in a more stable place. Furthermore, they are downscaling the amount of content that's in the actual game itself, with Rocket Racing, Ballistic, and Festival Battle Stage going offline. Let's be real though, no one was really playing those games. All it really did was bloat how much storage the game was taking up. I don't even know how it's possible for a game like Fortnite to be losing money when they were making billions in 2025 and made $40 billion in its entire lifetime. Like, how are you actually spending more than that? Naturally, the responses have not been too stellar, as some of these employees have been working on Fortnite for years at this point. Evan Kinney is gone. This guy worked for the company for 9 years. He was the principal engineer making sure the game actually worked. Like, so many senior positions just got let go in the blink of an eye. It's a goddamn massacre out there. This document literally goes through all of their accomplishments at Epic, and it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that some of these guys were literally helping to keep Fortnite afloat. Rivalry Robbie is one of the few staff members that was unaffected by the layoffs, but he went out to say this: "It's been a brutal day at Epic today, and I'm absolutely devastated by the loss of some of the most insanely bright and talented people I've ever had the honor to work with or even just be around. I appreciate the outcry of support and empathy that I've seen from the community today. Our teams will have to pick up the pieces and try to keep moving forward, but we cannot even fully understand what kind of impacts this will have on the game for the rest of the year and likely beyond." I mean, this is a pretty significant deal, and I think a lot of people have been in consensus that this is really a consequence of mismanagement. But really, I just think this is the after effect of some pretty bold choices from Epic Games that haven't necessarily paid off. There's been a lot of stuff happening with Fortnite that Paul Tassi from Forbes laid out pretty well. From the recent price hikes for V-Bucks, which were made to, quote, help pay the bills and avoid something like this from happening in the first place, to reports that the game's player base dropped to one of its lowest points in 2025, seeing a roughly 29% drop in playtime year over year. Now, we don't have the Steam charts to reliably gauge at least the PC player counts because Fortnite is exclusively on Epic Games Store, but it does seem to track based on the layoffs and Tim Sweeney's own statements. And really, I think this is all happening because we've seen a lot of high quality games reach extremely high player counts over the years. Fortnite, I think, has just been one of those games that has a predominantly young audience, and as that player base gets older, I think more are just moving away from the Battle Royale to try out other games like Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, Black Myth Wukong, and Highguard. And based on this, I think Fortnite has just struggled to not only retain those older fans moving on from Fortnite, but also failed to really win over new players, with games like Roblox and Minecraft continuing to grow year by year. There's also the fact that Epic Games has bled a lot of money fighting some legal battles outside of the game itself. I'm sure some of you remember the whole Apple fiasco where Epic Games was trying to ensure that developers could use their own external purchasing options and prevent Apple from charging a 27% commission from those purchases. I do think that this is overall a net positive for mobile gaming as a whole, but even still, this cost Epic Games $1 billion to fight in the 4 years that Fortnite was off the iOS App Store. And it doesn't stop there. In another lawsuit, Fortnite also reportedly paid Google $800 million in a new deal that involves Android and Unreal Engine. It's also interesting to note that Tim Sweeney highlighted that the layoffs were not influenced as a result of AI. Since it's a thing now, I should note that the layoffs aren't related to AI. To the extent it improves productivity, we want to have as many awesome developers developing great content and tech as we can. And I think people have highlighted this particularly because Tim Sweeney has been fairly outspoken on his thoughts surrounding AI. And I don't really blame everyone for being skeptical considering how many of these companies have been pushing for AI in the industry. I mean, for crying out loud, even the gaming press is starting to rely on AI. Even though Epic Games still has 4,000 employees remaining at the company, many people are understandably concerned about what this means for the future of the game in regards to like the quality and the stability of Fortnite. I mean, call me crazy, but like when you fire the guy who literally made the engine you're working on, it feels like a recipe for disaster. Like honestly, motivation has to be at an all-time low to become a game developer in 2026. It seems like no matter where you end up, you're just going to be fired in the end anyway. You make a game that flops, fired. You made the 2025 bestseller, gone. You help support one of the biggest games out there? Goodbye. Okay, well what about a new studio that literally just got established? Dunzo. GDC 2026 apparently had the most number of job seekers it has seen in a while. And that's not really surprising since there have been 30,000 jobs made redundant since 2023. Meanwhile, you've got the CEO of Nvidia, Jensen Huang, showcasing the capabilities of AI and unveiling DLSS 5, which is basically just an AI filter to make games more quote-unquote realistic. I mean, it really does feel like the game was rigged from the start, and it's frustrating because it really doesn't have to be this way. Turns out one of the best gaming companies out there when it comes to respecting developers and employees is Nintendo. What? There's a ton to hate about Nintendo. Breaking the dam for $80, the fact that the cartridges dropping their prices, download them from the eShop, online hardware deal that they have going on. But back when the Wii U had a disastrous launch, Nintendo's president at the time, Satoru Iwata, took a 50% cut to his salary, with other executives taking a 20 to 30% cut. This in turn stopped layoffs from happening. This is what he said: "If we reduce the number of employees for better short-term financial results, employee morale will decrease, and I sincerely doubt employees who fear that they may be laid off will be able to develop software titles that could impress people around the world." Several years later, they released the Switch in 2017, which has become its best-selling console of all time. Now, Japanese working culture is notoriously different to that of the West. It's a lot more hardcore and extreme. But when it comes to layoffs, Japan treats them as a last resort, meaning they have to exhaust through all other options before resorting to layoffs. This lies in stark contrast to like the UK and US, which are a lot more lenient when it comes to stuff like this. Nintendo chose to bet on its in-house talent, which is why it's been able to release a number of amazing titles over the years. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey, Animal Crossing, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Mario Kart. There's a reason why Nintendo has been able to sustain a loyal fan base for all these years. And I mean, this is just something you don't see from the gaming industry anymore, because rather than the leaders at the top taking accountability for their own actions and decisions, it's the people in the front lines actually making and shaping the game that have to suffer the consequences. Part of the reason why we're seeing so many layoffs is because the gaming industry just grew too quickly and is now unsustainable, and we're seeing the consequences of that right now. There was a major boom following the global pandemic where everyone was just stuck in their homes. They had little to do, so spent the majority of their time playing video games and watching VTubers. Player spending skyrocketed as instead of paying for petrol to drop off the kids to school and work the average 9 to 5, they were purchasing battle passes and loot boxes and gun skins and new games. There was a lot of demand that they needed to meet quickly, so it ushered in the years of acquisitions, buying as many companies as possible to improve their first-party lineup. Sony wanted to improve their live service plan, and Xbox, well, they just needed to have games in the first place. We all know how a lot of these games ended up performing. Various high-profile games underperformed, many of them live service games, and creating forever games requires a ton of time, effort, and resources, and a lot of money to sustain. They can be a money printer, sure, but they can also burn through money just as quickly. Then there was a sharp course correction after everything started going back to normal, and people started touching grass again. You've got more games out, but fewer people playing now, and all of a sudden, you're spending more money than you're actually making. making. And this isn't even exclusive to multiplayer games either. According to Jason Schreier, budgets are getting way out of control across the board in the AAA space, saying that some games are costing up to $300 million to make. What's causing this balloon in budgets? Well, sharper graphics is definitely one aspect, but another is that AAA is starting to bite off more than it can chew. Jason said, "Perhaps most alarmingly, games are growing more expensive because of rampant mismanagement, because of companies chasing trends, making bad bets, and lacking a clear creative vision. Inefficient workflows, technological shifts, and insecure executives can all be the cause of wasted time, which equates to higher budgets." Now, Jason mentions this later on in the article, but a good example is taking a billion-dollar studio specializing in single-player experiences and making them work on a live service. BioWare, Rocksteady, Guerrilla Games, you're spending millions paying their wages, and when you all of a sudden make them work on something they're not known for, it's gonna take a lot of time to adjust and make it happen. And time is money for a product that may not be up to standard. Fortnite tried so desperately to be like this metaverse where you had all these creator islands and the Unreal creator, but running a game like that requires an entirely different skill set and workforce to a competitive battle royale. Games are just becoming way too expensive for no good reason whatsoever, as they just add on all these extra layers and features that nobody's really asking for. And when you've got certain titles out there absolutely dominating the charts and the conversation and are being made at a fraction of the cost, it really does put the strategy of a lot of these AAA developers into question. Like, if you're losing money after being one of the biggest games out there, or being one of the best sellers, or making millions and billions in revenue, then maybe it's about time you went back to the drawing board. Honestly, I didn't mean for this video to be so rambly and ranty, but it's like we keep going through this cycle over and over again. And now we're back to where we started with another 1,000 people being laid off. I know I was saying like, oh, reset the counter as a sort of meme, but it's like, I really shouldn't have to at this point, because it's just not healthy for the industry, and it's not in the best interest of players either. Like, some of these developers help shape some of the best experiences that we've had in recent years, or even back to our own childhoods. And when job security is at an all-time low, why would they be motivated to stay within the industry when they could go to a different career path that's a lot more secure, a lot more lucrative, and they'll actually be able to keep their jobs after 10 years? Like, over the years, I've learned to like follow developers as opposed to like being loyal to certain brands, because those are the people that actually create some of the most iconic and beloved games out there. That is where the real value lies, and I think it really says something when former AAA devs go out to establish their own studio and they end up out-competing their former employer. Look, I don't know how to run a gaming studio. Heck, I don't even know how to type with more than 2 fingers, never mind program an entire game. But when you're having to lay off 30,000 jobs in the past 3 years, there's gotta be a change of strategy at some point. Like, I don't want to keep just playing Call of Duty and Roblox. I want to play these niche and exciting new games and new ideas. But they're not going to happen when there's fewer and fewer people making those games in the first place. Hope you enjoyed the video. Can't wait to reconvene next time when the next round of layoffs inevitably happen. As always, take care.